Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Daddy of 'Em All podcast, where we explore all things Cheyenne Frontier Days.
A part of Western history, a legend walking tall. Cheyenne Frontier Days, the Daddy of 'Em All.
I'm Lisa Murphy, and I'm honored to be hosting this podcast today. I'm a longtime volunteer for Cheyenne Frontier Days, and I was privileged to be selected as a dandy in the 1980s. I've also been volunteering for Cheyenne Frontier Days for as long as I can remember. I've also recently served on the board of directors and was the first female board of director in the history of this organization, and it has been a lifetime honor to be part of Cheyenne Frontier Days. Today, we'll be visiting with two amazing women who also have been involved with the Dandies for most of their lives as well. Right now, Halley Redman is our current Dandy Director. She also went on to be Miss Frontier. We also have with us today Shirley Holmes Churchill. She was in the Dandies in the 70s. After Arlene Kensinger formed the group, she also went on to become Miss Frontier and Miss Rodeo Wyoming. It is an honor to have you both here today. Let's get started. Halley, please tell us a little bit about yourself and about the Dandies program.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, Lisa. I'm super excited to be here today. So I actually started coming out to Cheyenne Frontier Days when I was really little. I mean, even before I could walk. I was out here feeding the rough stock with my dad, and then I decided to be a youth volunteer. So as early as I could, 8 years old, I joined the contestants, now rodeo committee, as a youth volunteer and kind of worked my way up. I saw the Dandies out there and said that would be really fun. So I decided to try out. Actually didn't make it my first year. So I came back. I was an extra that year, but then I did it for 3 more years after that. After that was over, I tried out for Lady in Waiting, became Lady in Waiting, and then Miss Frontier. Went and worked at the AA Barns with Chuck for a couple of years, Chuck James, and then I felt a little pull on my heartstrings back to the Dandies and decided I should come try out to be the Dandy Director. That's where we are today.
What an amazing gift for the group that you came back to be their director. Thank you for doing that. And I look forward to hearing so much more about your journey as a dandy, as Miss Frontier, and now as director. But Shirley, please tell us about your journey as a dandy and about your relationship with the amazing Arlene and Don Kensinger.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for hosting this podcast, and thank you for the nod to be a part of this podcast today. I'm very honored. My name is Shirley Holmes Churchill. I come from a pioneer family north of Cheyenne, ranching family. My grandparents came and homesteaded here in 1910, and our roots of the Holmes family run deep. With Cheyenne Frontier Days, my granddad started bringing in teams to pull the wagons in the parades in the 30s, and there's been 4 Miss Frontiers that were Holmeses, and we just have always tried to be involved and supportive of Cheyenne Frontier Days in the community. I became involved early, just riding in the parades and roadside saddle, and then remember sitting in the grandstands watching those amazing girls in the arena horseback in the early 70s after the group was formed in 1970, and took that to heart and tried out, and was a dandy all 3 years after my high school years in the mid-70s.
That's amazing, Shirley. And to hear about the Dandies being formed in the 70s by Arlene, can you tell us a little bit about Arlene and Don, their amazing dedication to growing this group and making it happen?
Well, that's true, Lisa, and it is hard not to mention one without the other. Of course, Arlene was approached by E.O. Davis. So Arlene had gone to Brussels for a Wild West show in 1958, she and Don. And when she came back, she formed a women's barrel racing club and was the first one in the state of Wyoming. And then she went on to form a quadrillette team. And quadrilling horseback is the same basically as square dancing horseback. And so she learned all of that while she was in Brussels, performing over there with the Wild West show. And so when she came back, she formed a quadrillette team, and they actually posted the pivots Early days of rodeo had as their grand entry was a serpentine, and that's where all of the cowboys rode, and girls usually set the pivots, and then they did like a serpentine snake ride around them, and it was just kind of fanfare to open the rodeo. Lots of color, fanfare, music, and so she and her quadrille team did that for 10 years. And then it was getting harder and harder for Cheyenne Frontier Days to recruit the cowboys or entice them to ride in the grand entry. And so Davis had been out at Pendleton, and they had a set of girls that were a quadrille type team, and he came back and he thought, that's what Cheyenne needs. We've done everything. We've offered to pay for their stalls and everything for the cowboys, and we'd really like to maybe do something different, but still have that color and fanfare. And so he approached Arlene and asked her if she would form a group of young teenage girls to form a quadrille type team, and they came up with the name Dandies, and the rest is history. We're at 55 years, I believe, this year of Dandies.
I love that history. It's amazing. And the Dandies of the Daddy of them all began and turned into the great ambassadors of Cheyenne Frontier Days that they are today.
They are. They're wonderful ambassadors.
And tell us a little bit about Don.
Well, Don came to Cheyenne as a jockey, actually, I'm not even sure the year, but early. He worked for Vern Elliott, who was a stock contractor here for many years, and he became the chute boss here as well, and in a real capacity as an advisor for Cheyenne Frontier Days. And Arlene and he married soon after they came back from Brussels, and in 1960, I believe. And then they just become a dynamic duo and force for Cheyenne Frontier Days. They're probably were some of the people that just, ate, slept, and bled for Cheyenne Frontier Days.
They sure did. I have an image going through my mind right now. I hear Arlene saying, watch your line, get your line straight.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh,
I
what
never
great
had
times.
the opportunity to work under Arlene, but we did get to go visit her house a few times. And it was more of a museum, I would say, than a house. I don't know if you guys had been, but we got an opportunity to go once each year, and she just had the largest collection you could think of all things Dandies and Cheyenne Frontier Days, and she could recall anything about any year, and I just thought that was so outstanding. And you could just tell she was a tried and true cowgirl.
Yes, she absolutely did. So on that note, Hallie, tell us about the Dandies program from your perspective now. And I would like to mention Diane Humphrey and Floyd Humphrey as well, in the same vein as Arlene and Don. We've had so many wonderful people involved with this program and love this program. And now you, Hallie, you have taken it over as well. So thank you to all of the people who have been involved and led the Cheyenne Frontier Days Dandies. Hallie.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Dandies themselves, the Dandies program is a group of young women ages 14 through 19 who serve Cheyenne Frontier Days as Goodwill ambassadors. And they go around they carry the sponsor flags for Cheyenne Frontier Days and perform a precision drill. They've done that since Arlene. And so it is like a dance that they do. And further than that, it's a year-round commitment for them. They are doing things, events, and going to fundraisers, and just being in the community year-round. And so it's truly, it's a great life skill that they learn being a dandy.
So Shirley, let's talk a little bit about horsemanship and how Arlene and Don prepared the young ladies for the challenges with horsemanship and being prepared to carry those heavy flags.
Sure. Several of the girls over the years come with great horsemanship skills, whether they're from ranching or been in the 4-H or FFA programs. And then there's some girls that really have the desire that maybe don't come with as great a horsemanship skills. And that was one thing that was so gracious about Dawn and Arlene. I remember some of the years while I was a dandy, some of the girls had real trouble with some horses. They weren't quite the right type for everything that was needed and expected of them in the quadrille and being in the arena. They weren't as seasoned. And Dawn and Arlene went about to locate some horses for those girls. And so that was always done. And I always kind of liken that the Dandies was a finishing school, not only for girls, but for their horses, actually, because there's so much practice involved and so many skills that have to be learned and honed in on and down to that it actually becomes a very great finishing school, and so many of the girls are better horsewomen after their experience being in Dandies.
Well, I love your explanation of that. When I first started in the Dandies in '84, I had a little barrel saddle, and Don Kensinger came up to me and he said, "Now you're going to be getting a new saddle before this year's over." I loved it, and they were just so wonderful because they really did. They taught all of the girls the skills that they needed, and they really
Right.
did help us to start at one place and finish at another. And they were wonderful. They taught us the skills that we needed and the tools that we needed to really improve
They
and
did.
get
They
better.
wanted to see everybody succeed and the team succeed and took the great pride in the representation of the team for Cheyenne Frontier Days. And Arlene was a stickler for being polished and all. She had several sayings, and as I say, it was kind of like a finishing school. I always loved the fact that when I was a dandy, she said, "Now somebody has to be last." She said, "It just better not be you every time." So, there
That's
were
great.
there were great life skills that they taught as well, being a dandy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Hallie, add to that with where the program is now. We were talking a little bit about how you're working on horsemanship and how you're taking the program in that direction now.
Absolutely. So I like to kind of think of the Dandies as a varsity sport and one of the most elite at that, if you will, because if you think about it, the young ladies are not only having to make sure that they themselves are prepared mentally, physically, and emotionally, but they're in charge of 1,000-pound animal who's needs to be the same. So they're working all summer long and even into the spring and winter, all winter long, to ensure that these horses are mentally, physically, and emotionally in shape and ready to go. We're asking quite a lot of them throughout the show, and the girls, like you were saying, they are learning quite a bit about they're learning life skills like dedication and when we go on trips, they know that their horses are going to eat and drink before any time before they do every time. So they learn quite a bit through Cheyenne Frontier Days being dandies, and those life skills are really, really important, I think.
We were talking a little bit about the flags and the challenge that comes along with that. You've got to be a good horse person first before you add in the carrying of the sponsor flag or the American flag that they'll be carrying. Can you talk a little bit about the carrying of that flag that maybe the audience doesn't understand what a challenge that can be with the wind?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And so the sponsor flags that we carry, it's kind of funny. They're double-sided. And so they are a lot heavier than some of the practice flags or the flags that you'll carry at other rodeos. And when the wind hits them, they get so heavy. I'm sure you guys remember that feeling of and flybys, and you just had to make sure your elbows are locked and you're holding it in front of you so that flag doesn't go anywhere. But yeah, just making sure that that is right there, right in front of you, and you're holding it, and you better hold on to the flag. I keep telling the girls, if that flag hits the ground, you better hit it with it. So yeah, it is very challenging, but once you get the hang of it too, you guys might remember when you stop riding with the flag, it almost becomes a crutch, and you have to figure out your balance when you
Yeah.
stop riding with it. So.
This is fun. We're talking about the year of the cowgirl. And if anyone doubts the horsemanship skills or that the dandies are cowgirls, I think we all three can attest that that really does take horsemanship skills to be able to do what those young ladies are doing in that arena. We're all very proud of them.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct. And to the flag, as you say, that maybe John Q. Public doesn't understand or know, the length of your stirrups and how you take your seat, it all are part of the balance and that allows you to carry that flag properly and safely as well, and have have the strength to have the resistance in the wind and to carry it properly, as I said.
So let's talk about how are the Dandies now? It's been kind of interesting to watch because Shirley, you were a member of the Dandies in the mid 70s. I was in the Dandies in the mid 80s, and you
Yes.
were in the Dandies in the 2000s, right? So it's wonderful. We've covered the different time frames and we've been able to watch it evolve. There were 12 members in the Dandies when I was a member, and I really thought that was a perfect number. And Hallie, is it true that you've got 11 girls in the group now? So we've sort of come full circle. Tell us about what
Yeah,
it's like for the group now.
sure. So yes, we do. We have 11 girls now, and it is. I think it is kind of that sweet spot number. When I was a dandy, it was 16, and then even for show, they would call back 4 more for extras because there was so much need for carrying sponsor flags. So there
Okay.
was actually 20 dandies by the end of Frontier Days, which was it seemed like a lot, but it was all needed. So when we come back to now, I think 12 is really kind of that sweet spot. And so hearing that we have 11, we're kind of hitting that recruitment really hard this year and trying to make sure that we can recruit some more dandies. And the way that we're going, I think, is we it's a little bit less common for the dandies to grow up on a ranch or riding horses their entire lives. So I think that the people that we're aiming for or to recruit are a little bit more, they are very dedicated. If they want to ride horses, they have to go out and they have to go get lessons and learn how to ride horses themselves. So I don't think it's a bad thing that they're not growing up on a ranch
No.
or with their own horses, but I think what we're getting from that is we're getting a population of of young women who are really truly dedicated and driven to be a dandy.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah, it isn't important. I mean, there's opportunity there for everyone. And if you have the accessibility to a horse, I think it's a great growing ground and to become familiar. And we all know what's better for a young girl than a horse.
Absolutely. I agree.
Right.
It's interesting because we haven't talked about the discipline that you learn taking care of a horse and
Right.
learning those skills that, like you were saying, the horse eats and drinks before we do. What we've learned growing up around these magnificent animals has been so incredible. The other thing that we haven't really touched on is the networking that we learned. I know Shirley and I can probably talk a little bit more about this than you because you're still so young, but
Yes.
it's interesting that the networking, the friendships that we've made have lasted a lifetime.
They have.
We've been on this park our whole lives, Shirley, and the
Exactly.
friendships that we've made. We were talking about being on Tom Bowman's radio station and Brenda
Yes.
Foley and, our
Correct.
first radio interviews that we made and our careers have been sort of built around that networking. And if I were to talk to a young gal now, I would tell her that the best thing that she could do in the world would be to get that horse, work with that horse, join the Dandies, and soak up everything that she could in learning to be an ambassador for Cheyenne Frontier Days, because those skills will last a lifetime.
They do.
Right.
They do. And as Bill Dubois, one of our all-time great volunteers here at Frontier Park, made the comment, it's the Cheyenne thing to do. And so what better way for a young woman to become involved in Cheyenne Frontier Days than to try out for the Dandies? And it's an area where you get to learn all things Cheyenne Frontier Days and the history, the mechanics. You get to be involved with all volunteers at different levels at different times. You just see how it works and the dedication of the volunteers. And Arlene was such a champion to instill that volunteer spirit within the girls. And she
Uh,
really, as I said, ate, slept, and bled CFD red is the way I like to say it.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and so it's a great ground to bring new volunteers in and to have that experience, which is the Cheyenne thing to do.
Absolutely. Bill Du Bois said it best.
He did.
And it was so wonderful because the Dandies do volunteer at the museum and they go to the governor's invitational art show. They get involved with the Thunderbirds, all of the things that they do, learning
Yes.
about media relations and public speaking, the skills that they learn do carry on with them for a lifetime, in addition to the friendships that they make. So, in recruiting these girls to move forward and to do this is a skill that they can value for their entire
Absolutely.
lifetime. So,
Exactly.
it's exciting. And I really hope, Shirley, that, you and I and all of our friends from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that we were dandies with will continue to help us to encourage girls to try out and make the friendships that we were able to make.
Absolutely. I
So-
kind of think too, one of my personal goals for the Dandies is that they leave here with more than what they came with. And what you're saying with those personal skills, they're life skills, like you're saying, that are never going to leave them. So being able to step into a leadership role and show each of the Dandies that they can be a leader. And then public speaking skills, being able to go up to a random stranger and carry on a conversation. Just all those different types of skills, I think, that really form them from beautiful young women to leadership and go out and be a great part of the community later.
You're exactly right. We're very blessed to have been part of this group. And Hallie, I'm so excited that you're continuing on as our Dandies director. Tell us a little bit more about that. I know you just found an assistant director to assist you. It is a full-time position year-round. How are you doing it? And how are you getting the girls to make that commitment that's needed to move forward?
Yeah, so I just got an assistant director. Her name is Catherine Olson. She was a dandy last year, and she decided to step into this role. We had an interview process, and she did outstanding. And so yeah, we're so excited to do that. It's quite the commitment. It is. It's year round. There's not much for a break, but when I tried out for this position, that going into it, right? You know that it's going to be year round and it's going to be quite the commitment. But at first I didn't know if I wanted to do it. I said, we'll see. I had some people in my ear saying, I think you'd be okay at that. It's like, well, I think you're just full of it, but whatever. So I kind of just brushed them off for a while and I didn't really think much of it. But as the year went by and the tryout process interviews came up, I kept feeling this pull, this tug on my heartstrings. Like, maybe you should do that. Maybe you should do that. And so the Dandies kind of called me back, and it has been one of the most rewarding experiences. I'll tell you, last year, I might get a little emotional. They, sorry, they did outstanding. Sorry, I have to pause. They put in so much hard work and effort that watching them go out there for the first time, I was kind of like a ball of nerves. I was kind of a ball of nerves, and then you get to see them go do that drill for the first time, and it is amazing. So, sorry,
That's
I didn't think I'd
that's
get
the type of
emotional on this,
dedication it takes to be a good leader. And I have to give you high five kudos there, Hallie, in that, because leadership, any team, any group, I don't care, is only as good as the leadership. And that's why they were so outstanding under both Arlene and Diane Humphrey's leadership, and will be under yours. And you've taken those skills and everything that you learned from those two great ladies, and now you're getting to exemplify those, and there'll be girls that'll come after that'll be able to do the same thing just because of all of that. And that's the importance of that program, I think, that sometimes gets overlooked. And I just say thank you for stepping up to that position and taking on that responsibility.
I agree, Shirley.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I thank you as well for keeping it going and for loving those girls and making it so important for them, because keeping this group going is important to all of us. Hundreds of us. There are hundreds of alumni who thank you for keeping it
Absolutely.
going and making it such a wonderful opportunity for these gals to keep going. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Anytime. I'm very thankful. I'm very blessed to be in this position. So thank
Yeah.
you both.
You bet.
All right. So, on that note, tell us how someone becomes a dandy. What do they need to do?
So it's a tryout process. And so it is, they turn in an application and then they ride a reining pattern on their own horse. This is all done in the same day, by the way. They'll ride a reining pattern that is given to them on their own horse. And then after that, we'll do a brief interview. And we're just looking for young women who are driven, willing to learn, and adaptable. I think those are some of the three main things that are really important for skills as a dandy. Everything else we can teach you. Some horsemanship background is definitely wanted and needed, but all that stuff, public speaking and the leadership values, that's kind of instilled while you're in the program and while you're a dandy. So
You have 11 going in. We've got show coming up. So are you ready? When is your first performance?
we are very excited. We're actually about 3 weeks away from our first performance. It's June 7th at Hell on Wheels.
All right.
It's right in town. So yeah, that'll be kind of fun.
Okay. Tell us something fun. Tell us about something fun that's happening with the girls. Entertain us.
Yeah, so let's see. We actually have a little dandy meet and greet coming up. And so what that is a little bit of a recruitment opportunity for anyone to come out and watch the dandies. We're going to do a practice. They'll get to see the drill, and that is coming up on June 9th. And so that'll be kind of a fun opportunity if you want to come meet and talk to some of the dandies.
Okay. That would be outstanding.
I was just listening to Halley. It made me think of how the program has actually evolved over the years from that 1970 mark when the girls didn't even have matching outfits. And then Arlene became such an ambassador to go to market and get sponsors for the clothing for the girls. And I don't even know how many outfits they have now or pairs of boots. But I remember at my time, it was 3 outfits, 2 hats, and 1 pair of boots. And I, through my leathercraft skills in school, in 4-H, I made us all matching belts and just to kind of top off the outfit. And we had tryouts as well. I remember on a Sunday afternoon, you just showed up with your horse and rode and went through the drills. And then I think we might have answered a question or two, not too many. And there were 12 of us at that time, and we didn't travel maybe quite as extensively. I remember we went to Colorado Springs, we went to Casper, and then all the local areas. And the girls travel so much more now as well. And it has really evolved and become as Cheyenne Frontier Days has. And the girls, one thing that was fun that I remember as being a dandy was we used to also ride at the night shows with our horses. And we actually would arrive early and get in the bucking chutes. And then we were the opening to the night show. And that was really fun. That was a great experience for
Had to
me.
have been a blast.
It was a blast.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Shirley, because we also did that.
Did you?
And
Yes.
we would line up and Arlene would say, well, a couple of the girls are missing. And we would sit in the center chute on Quail Dobbs's donkeys.
Correct.
And then we would ride out on either his donkeys or on a Clydesdale. And then we would
Yes.
come running out. And the night show was so fun.
It was fun.
It was really fun. So after that remark, I would like to ask you, what was your most fun memory while you were a dandy?
Well, that was really a fun part of it. Just all the travel, going to places, being part of a team, as Arlene taught us all, to be part of something bigger than yourself, and the connections of the great people that you met, particularly through Dawn and Arlene. It has served me well through, they were so well known, and it absolutely changed my life and the trajectory that I took because of those friendships and those introductions and the skills that I learned as being a dandy.
That's great. That's great. I it's hard to pin down one fond memory. I think there's so many out there, but I kind of see myself, I like that adrenaline a little bit. And so anytime when you can run fast on a horse, I think that is just so, so fun. So there was a flyby that they don't do it anymore, but it was right before the wild horse race, right after the bulls. And it was fun, and no one really wanted to do it. You had to be a senior dandy in order to do it during my years, because what they do, the whole track was shut down for the wild horse race, so no one else could get in. And they'd have a little gate on the inner track open for you. So they'd send you, and then they'd say, hurry, hurry, get in, get in. And they'd shut the gate behind you. And then they'd say, okay, now just stand here. And if a horse comes trying to jump, it's your job to do that. And I thought they were joking. So I'm just sitting there hanging around. And lo and behold, the band of horses comes around, and they just see their pen over there with all the hay and water waiting to, and they're like, that looks great. And then they say, oh yeah, that I should jump that. And it's just a dinky little fence, that inner track fence, you know. And so I thought they were joking this whole time that I'd be put to work after that flyby, but they were wrong. I was wrong. So yeah, and then I was like, what am I gonna do? So you just go around with the flag and wave the flag, but I just got such a kick out of it and a little bit of adrenaline. So
Bringing the wild horses.
yeah,
There
it's
you
kind
go.
of fun.
You
Kind of
never know what
fun,
you're going to
but
get.
yeah,
Right.
the opportunities that Dandies gives you is just, I mean, I don't even think you could put a top on it. I did so many things, even with traveling, getting to travel all
Yes.
over the Front Range.
I had a hard time trying to think of mine as
Yeah.
well. There were so many friendships and so many fun things that we did. I always loved sitting on the pad and watching the night shows. You know,
Yes.
we used to be able to sit right up next to the acts because they didn't have the party zone
Right.
when we were in the Dandies in the 80s. So we could sit right up front. And I always loved, we were so tired because we did the parades and the pancake breakfast and the rodeos. So we were always so tired, it'd be hard to stay awake, but we always tried. So we would go to the night shows, and we got to see people like Lee Greenwood and George Strait, and we had such great acts. I mean, really traditional country music. But I always loved sitting there at night and looking up and seeing the American flag flying to the north.
Yes.
So even today, whenever I'm at the park, I look to the north to see that American flag flying, and I feel like I'm home. So no matter what
Special.
it is for me, I think being part of the Dandies, that's one of my favorite memories because everything related to that for me. So whether it was carrying a flag or sitting at the rodeo or sitting at the night show, it was just a good home feeling.
Absolutely.
I
Well,
loved
and
it.
you do. You become part of the CFD family, and that is home. So very
Yeah.
special feelings.
Thank you, Shirley, for your wonderful stories about the history of Arlene and Dawn. And Hallie, thank you so much for taking on the directorship and keeping this organization going.
Absolutely.
Well,
And thank
thank
you,
you.
Lisa, for all of your insight and being our host this
Yes,
afternoon.
thank you so much. It was fun to be a part of this fun podcast.
This has been wonderful. Thank you, ladies. And I would like to invite everyone to join us again next month for the next podcast of All Things Cheyenne Frontier Days.
A part of Western history, a legend walked and talked. Cheyenne Frontier Days, the daddy